It's so great to be talking with you, Sean. Thank you. I appreciate this.
Great to be talking with you too.
So, we're here talking about your film Dangerous Animals, and I'm looking forward to getting into that conversation. But I really want to start with your experience with sharks.
It's actually pretty boring. I've never been a shark fanatic. I mean, I've always thought they're majestic creatures. But my brother-in-law is like the real shark nerd. He's like he'd been chewing my ear off for years about just how incredible sharks are. But to me, I was just like a massive Jaws fan. I'm not someone that's done a deep dive into like the thousands of shark films that have ever been made. But it was only when the script crossed my desk and it was this combination of shark film and serial killer film that my ears really kind of pricked up and just thought, wow, they're two really popular subgenres. And the fact that then the shark wasn't the monster, man was the monster, and that it does actually, there are moments in the film where the shark is represented in her true majestic glory. And so from then I sort of went into the research phase and did a much deeper dive into just nature documentaries, watched a lot of Discovery Channel, kind of stayed away from films in a way because they tend to be visual effects heavy and very the shark faces are almost animated like humans, and I wanted it to feel kind of nature real where the scars had the sharks have scars. But yeah, I am not one of these. Like, I still haven't even like swum with a shark yet or done the cage dive. That was
Mhm.
number one on my list, and but because we were kind of shot out of a cannon and got green lit suddenly, that just sort of fell by the wayside. So maybe as soon as this is done, I'll swim with the sharks.
Yes, there you go. Bucket list item that I'll leave for you to do. I love how you portray sharks in this movie. I still like my feet firmly planted on the ground. So that's just my personal preference, but I hope you do get around to swimming with sharks. Um, so we're going to talk about the film, but it's interesting because this movie is premiering or has premiered at the Directors Fortnight. Um, Educate me. What is Directors Fortnight?
So Directors Fortnight is basically has a kind of a long esteemed history with like Martin Scorsese films have played there and David Cronenberg and it's really for sort of celebrates the director and subversion of form. So you can be if you're a genre film, it's like you can't be a typical genre film, and so this isn't your typical shark film, and I'm really glad that that Julian and his team at Cannes and Directors Fortnight recognize that. But yeah, I mean, like weird bit of trivia. I've been told this is the first shark film that's played at Cannes. There's been some that have been there played in the market side of things, but
Mm.
as a selection. So it's like and it played so well. It's a real audience film, and the crowd were like laughing and screaming, and I don't know. I think it was kind of perfect because there are so many amazing kind of like but quite serious films at Cannes, and I think the audience just wanted to unleash a bit, and it gives it's a fun ride. It's escapism.
This it is a fun film. I'll say when I turned it on to watch it, my husband happened to walk into the room like, "Oh, a shark movie," and he wasn't intending on watching it, but then he slowly sat down, and then we just started like talking about it and commentating. It certainly is a film to engage with, and I very much appreciated about it. He had things to do that night, but kind of shirked off the responsibilities to finish watching this movie, and so it was great. Let's
That's good.
Yeah, let's talk about what it's about. So we mentioned sharks and serial killers. What is Dangerous Animals, and give us the synopsis.
Yeah, so it's sort of about a shark obsessed serial killer who abducts a rebellious kind of feisty surfer, um, played by Hassie Harrison, with the intention of kind of carrying out a ritualistic feeding to the sharks below, but he gets more than he bargained for, and yeah, so it's this kind of like collision course between, in a way, two kind of broken people that have come from nothing that are like the human version of sharks, because sharks are given birth to and then they're left to survive kind of on their own. And so
Mhm.
yeah, it's essentially a serial killer played by Jai Courtney that really picks the wrong girl to feed to the sharks.
And we're gonna talk a little bit more about casting here in a minute, but it is a very interesting premise where we're talking the title is Dangerous Animals, and on the surface you think, oh, it's about the sharks are dangerous animals, but we have also the serial killer who is a dangerous animal of his own kind. So definitely kind of a double play on the title there. It's such an interesting film. Now this is one that you directed, but was written by Nick Leopard.
Yep.
Um, and I know that the last two features that you had, you wrote and directed. So I was curious about what about this story made you decide to direct someone else's script.
Just what we talked about, the fact that this was the first shark film ever where the shark wasn't the monster. You know, as
Yeah.
incredible as Jaws is, it did a terrible disservice to the sharks, where every subsequent shark film, at least that I've seen, the sharks just indiscriminately hunt humans, and sharks aren't baddies. They don't attack. They don't attack people for no reason. Man is the monster, and the sharks carry scars because of us. They just like to kind of mind their own business, and so I hadn't seen a shark film where it's like, it didn't shirk on the shark carnage, but it directed the finger at the true monster man, and it had a really kind of great kind of, there's a shark conservation kind of angle to it. There's a certain spirituality to it as well, but it also just has the most fearsome serial killer, and he's wildly unhinged, but also kind of strangely likable in that in that captain of that tour guide kind of way that and I just thought this, it was just such a fun experience, and it was irresistible. And I'm also a huge fan of, I mean, this is getting away from sharks, but I'm a huge fan of like the Rocky movies, and especially,
Mm-hmm.
that thing where it's like, if I'm an audience member and I'm in the protagonist's shoes, I want to feel like I earned my survival, that I go 15 rounds, and just when you think, I can't go anymore, you still keep. That to me is like when cinema's really inspiring. And so, and that's where Hassie kind of, she's likable but very Texas strong. And this film about two people just going toe to toe. But I also feel like there's sort of, it's got like a political and a social kind of subtext, but
Hmm.
that's not front and center. Front and center, it's definitely
Right.
it's definitely a thrill ride first and foremost.
Yeah, there's so much to take away from this movie, and I love Hassie in that role, just the energy she brings to this protagonist and the character's background, how that all plays to this survival instinct. It's great. Um, the movie looks beautiful. I remember I was like almost instantly captivated in early on in the movie when there's some shark shots underwater. It's just gorgeously filmed. Like Discovery Channel Shark Week kind of footage of like watching sharks, but then just the whole movie is just like beautiful to look at. Tell me about the filming process, like what it's like to film on the boat, and what scenes were fun for you to film, what were more difficult. Tell me about filming this.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's good that you talked about the look, because it's, Shelley Farthingale, the cinematographer, is just, an absolute gun. But we wanted it to feel, you know, we wanted it to feel inviting and touristy. So Maverick was a massive reference, just in terms of a look and feeling like it's like sunny and glossy, and then running that off the rails straight into hell, and then these kind of like, these kind of seedy reds start to kind of come into it. And I think, like with any, I'm a big fan of expressionistic cinema, where the palette and the look and the feel kind of shifts with the actors, and so sound design becomes more subterranean as they get tighter. But the hardest part of it, I mean, it's, to me, the best bit about a film is when you finish shooting it, because we kind of got there. You're always racing the clock, and yes, it's exciting in the moment when it's like, oh, we got that and that was great, but then straight away you have to move on to the next setup. So there's never a lot of time to stop and kind of enjoy it, and it's such a kind of like team game. But yeah, I mean, it was the hardest part without doubt, was shooting on the all the stuff on the boat. All the exteriors was done for real. So you've got actors that are there on cranes, and the stunt team has to be great. We've got like a boat that's kind of pinned with pontoons in the middle of the ocean. Everyone's dealing with seasickness and loss of balance, and so like it's a badge of honor shooting a shark film actually out on the water. But it definitely, it wasn't easy. But I'm really glad we did it because I feel like there's a sense of danger and immediacy that you just don't get with a tank. Tanks can feel quite sterile, just like a big bathtub, and you have to recreate nature and air. Whereas, when Jai's in the dinghy, and he's actually driving that dinghy himself, and the wind and the salt smacking him in the face, and so all that stuff is great retrospectively. In the moment, it's like we got it, move on, thank God. So,
Oh, that's really funny. Um, let's let's talk about the cast and the characters in this movie. Because Jai is so incredible as the antagonist here. Um, and I think I've heard in previous interviews that you're very interested in exploring the monster in people sometimes, in the stories that you tell. So tell me about crafting this version of this antagonist in this movie with Jai.
yeah, I mean, it all comes from the psychological building blocks. Like the first meeting I had with Jai, he was in New York and it was 5 o'clock in the morning on the Gold Coast. And he picks up, and I was really nervous because I felt like that he was just born to play this role for kind of a number of reasons. And he just goes, Sean Byrne, tell me about this guy. And then, so I got a chance to sort of tell him about all the research that I'd done in terms of this guy, who he is, and the shark attack as a child, and what has led him to this point, and the lack of kind of any kind of parental guidance, and the warped socialization, and the fact that he probably hasn't had any friends, or he's been obsessed with sharks. And you're popular after you're in the newspaper for a shark attack, but if you're a weirdo that just keeps talking about sharks, no one's going to want to hang out with you. And he really has a captive audience in this film where he can keep giving his shark monologues. And so, but also it's very much it's a real kind of like Hollywood thrill ride, and it's escapism. And Jai's done a lot of he's done Suicide Squad and Terminator and Die Hard. And he goes, this is, oh, welcome aboard. This is a line for the audience, isn't it? And how romantic. Too bad I'm more of a horror fan. This is a line for the audience. So he knows when he can kind of wink a bit, but he also is a nuanced enough actor to capture the broken child inside the man. But if you want to go kind of Steve Irwin charismatic, and he's already played Captain Boomerang in Suicide Squad, he has that wild, unhinged kind of charisma as well. And on top of that, physically he is so intimidating. Like the first time I met him, I tried to give him a hug, and I could barely get my arms around his shoulders. It felt like I was hugging Mike Tyson or something. So it's like having this like really scruffy, good-looking grizzly bear too on set. That's so yeah, yeah. So it's sort of all directors can do is kind of prepare. He you kind of prepare the recipe, hand it over, and then the actors kind of, and they bring their own life experience, and they change things and they elevate it. And because they're the ones that have got to be there with all the lights on them, and everyone just, 150 people just hanging around waiting for them to do their thing. So yeah, so that's kind of how it kind of worked with Jai.
There's a specific scene I want to ask about you directing with Jai. Maybe you've been asked about this all day today, but I have to ask the dancing scene in the boat when it's the evening and he's just like dancing around and just in his robe. Um I'm so curious at how you as a director approach like explaining what kind of physicality we need for this scene. Tell me about directing that scene with Jai.
I had no idea what he was going to do, or how. I had no idea what the dance was going to be. I'm not sure whether Jai did. He didn't want to rehearse it. It was the last scene we shot on a Friday, so we could just kind of unleash. So all I could talk about was the intellectual side of things, which was that this is like, Tucker's a filmmaker. Basically this is a rap party for his snuff film, which is really weird because the audience is having such a good time watching it. But it's a godlike moment because for a serial killer, like the moment after it's immediately after the death, that they feel most alive because there's an absence of empathy in most serial killers. So that's the moment where you are kind of in their mind, kind of a god. And then they keep trophies just to kind of sustain them until the trophies wear off and they want to do it again. So in this moment, it's like, and that's what he's playing. I didn't know how he was going to dance, but in his eyes, when his eyes roll back, it's like, he's playing right now, I am a god. And the song as well was, Evie by Stevie Wright's an Australian
Mhm.
classic about letting your hair hang down, and what he does with the hair is very much a part of his kind of trophy cabinet. And but it is all Jai. Like I finished watching it, and everyone, the whole crew, everyone just stopped and watched that performance and that dance. I didn't know, and it was just like, my God, what has he done? That was amazing. And the only thing, people talk about Silence of the Lambs and Buffalo Bills dance, but I just thought of Tom Cruise in Risky Business. I was like,
Yeah.
that's like that's like the Bob Seger dance on acid. That's what it felt
Right.
like.
It certainly was a very entertaining moment in the movie. And of course, kind of what you were talking about with this character, obviously being deplorable for what he does as a serial killer, but also just like having this interesting like side of him that's, entertaining and engaging, and it's just like funny to watch. Um
Absolutely, and he's also he's a tour guide. That's what you got to be.
mhm.
That's how the spider catches the fly. That's why it's kind of relatable, and I think people are having so much fun with Jai's performance because everyone, you've gone on holiday. Everyone gets. It doesn't have to be on a boat. Everyone's done one of these things that relies on a tour guide, and you're a bit nervous and you trust in them. So I think it's just that's a great starting point for things to go wrong.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Let's talk about Hessie, as Zephyr, the main character here. She, like I said, she brings such an energy to this role that really, when they go toe to toe, I mean, she already has like a strong personality in this character. But then of course, her and Tucker are going toe to toe at each other on the boat. I want to know, at what moment did you know that Hessie was right for this role?
Well, we kind of looked at open casting for Zephyr because I wanted the audience to really be, in her shoes. And if there's someone that you don't, Hassie was having a moment with Yellowstone, and there was a lot of buzz about it, but it wasn't that next level thing where you can, yeah, where there's a certain perception of the type of role she plays. It was like I felt like the audience were going to be able to put themselves in her shoes, and it's a real fish out of water story where she's running away from like a broken kind of past and literally to another country, only to land in sort of much deeper waters. So I love the fact that she had this kind of like all American kind of girl quality, but there was a kind of Texas strong kind of aspect to it, which is where she's from, and she rides horses. But also even the very first audition, and she actually auditioned with Josh Houston, who plays Moses, and there's just like she's got a lot of kind of moxie. She's instantly likable, which was crucial because Zephyr keeps people at an arm's length, and you still got to like her even when she's like running away from someone who's been really lovely to her. She does some things in this that are unlikable, but you still got to connect on a heart level. And so she has a real natural warmth, but she's also got kind of backbone and grit, and I was really worried about it because it's such a crucial casting choice because Jai is such a massive obstacle physically and psychologically. The audience has to believe that this girl can go toe to toe, and they absolutely do. When you see an audience's reaction, it's
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what really keeps this movie entertaining, is that dynamic between her and Jai, and the survival instinct that really seems to come naturally to her in this role. It's great. It's great. Um, I kind of want to talk about you as a filmmaker. You've so your last two films, they premiered at Toronto, and now you have this one premiering that premiered at Directors Fortnight. But it's interesting because it seems like there's kind of time in between the films that you do. Can you talk about how that benefits you as a filmmaker? What happens in that time to prepare you for this next movie, and in particular here with Dangerous Animals?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how much it benefits me. It's definitely not by design. I mean, I was writing in between all of those projects, and then I'm very proud of the scripts that I've got out there at the moment. They're all optioned, but I don't know if you've been watching the studio. That's
I
unfortunately.
love the studio.
Yeah, Hollywood is very risk averse, and if you're
Yeah.
trying to make original R-rated films about humans hunting other humans, it's not, you don't have the cushioning of like the supernatural. The films that I tend to make are like, no, we did it. We're responsible. In fact, I even had to change the Devil's Candy to give it a supernatural element to get it made. And so,
Right.
as much as people have been loving the scripts, it'd been harder to get. They're just not easy to get off the ground. It's a big jump from optioning material to actually getting the financing. So when Dangerous Animals kind of crossed my desk, I was like, this is fantastic. Like I love serial killer films just because I think you get to explore the extreme nature of man, which is really interesting from a character perspective. Plus, it combined with a shark film. And I remember even before I got this script, I'd read it was just like something that came up on my feed or whatever on the internet that the shark film was the only type of film that has never lost money in the history of cinema. And of course, it's probably, it has to be true because the internet never lies. But, but that stuck in my head. And then when I read this script, I was like, wow, it's like these two like really popular demographics. And yes, serial killer films are harder to get off the ground, but when you kind of like have the shark film also holding it up, then so that's why I sort of jumped at it. And I felt like a lot of my research just with other things that I wrote kind of tied into that. And like I was doing something else that it's a kind of like almost like a Tinder serial killer film that I've been researching Ted Bundy. And
Mhm.
even though Captain Tucker is not Ted Bundy, there's still a
Right.
similarity in terms of how the spider catches the fly and charisma and getting people to lower their guards. And so in that sense, it helped me that I feel like, I understood psychologically, I understood the world I was stepping into, but, I would have liked to have made more films in the meantime.
Well, it is interesting. You're mentioning about how there's a shark film, it's a serial killer film, and honestly, I think both topics, at least here in America, are very relevant. We do like our shark movies, and true crime, serial killers has definitely been a major topic that has exploded in entertainment over the past few years. So maybe that brings me to my last question: is with it opening in America here in June, what do you want American audiences to take away from it? What are you hoping the reactions will be?
I just want them to have a really, really great time. I mean, to me, this is like it's designed to be a summer horror event. It's like it's a big screen movie. It's about escapism. I love I love elevated horror, but this isn't that. There's a lot of messaging in the film, but ultimately you can leave that at the door. This is just gonna like this is gonna I hope kind of blow your hair back because it's attacking, it's coming at you, it's a summer thrill ride, and hopefully it ends where you've just got you've just used your last drop of energy. Like I just wanted to give the audience kind of everything, and it is a bit of a throwback to 80s, 90s kind of action cinema as well, like Speed and Die Hard. But most of all, I hope they see the first original shark film since Jaws, because I feel like every other shark film since Jaws is a reworking of that film to some degree. This one's
Mhm.
fresh.
I love that take, and I think there's so much fun to be had with this movie. I definitely had a great time with it, and I'm happy that it's premiered at Directors Fortnight. It sounds like it's been received very well there, and I expect it to do the same when it opens here in the States. So congratulations! I really appreciate your work on this film.
Thanks so much, Thomas. It's very kind of
Very cool.
you.